Imagine you're in a small wooden canoe and the land you left 3 days ago is gone. Not far away. Gone. No line on the horizon, no birds heading home at dusk to follow back. Just water in every direction moving under you like it's breathing. Your fresh water is almost finished. Your food ran out yesterday, and the current you thought was carrying you toward the next island has actually been pulling you somewhere else entirely, somewhere with no name, for 2 days now. You don't know it yet, but you're not going to see land again for weeks, maybe longer, and the ocean does not care. For most of human history, this wasn't a nightmare scenario, it was a real recurring event. And what people actually did when it happened is far stranger and far more instructive than you'd expect. There are 5 things that decided whether someone in that canoe lived or died, and by the end, you'll see how those same 5 things may have quietly built entire island civilizations. Let's start with the thing that kills you first. Not sharks, not storms, thirst. A human body can survive roughly 3 to 10 days without water, depending on heat, exertion, and how much you sweat. And here's the cruel part. You're surrounded by liquid you cannot drink. Seawater contains about 3.5% salt, far more than your kidneys can process. Drink it, and your body has to pull fresh water from your own tissues just to flush the excess salt back out. You don't quench your thirst. You accelerate your death. Sailors who broke and drank seawater anyway often died faster than the ones who drank nothing at all. So what do you actually do? The oldest, most reliable answer is rain. A single sudden downpour caught in a sail, a hollowed shell, or cupped hands can mean the difference between surviving the week and not. Steven Callahan, a modern sailor whose life raft sank in 1982, spent 76 days adrift in the Atlantic and later wrote that a rain squall wasn't just relief. It was, in his words, pure joy, arriving exactly when his body had nearly given out. Ancient people crossing open water almost certainly understood this instinctively because the ones who didn't survive to pass anything on. But rain isn't reliable. Some stretches of ocean can go a week or more without a drop. So there's a second source, one that sounds unbelievable until you understand the biology behind it. Fish. Not eating them for food, though that matters too. Drinking them. The flesh of a freshly caught fish contains fluid your body can actually use, and the fluid behind a fish's eyes, along with fluid in its spine, is close enough to fresh water that castaways have used it for centuries to stay alive another day. It's not pleasant, it's not much, but it buys time, and time is the entire game, which brings up the next problem. You need to catch that fish first, with nothing. This is where something remarkable shows up again and again in survival accounts separated by hundreds of years and thousands of miles. People improvise hooks from anything rigid, bone, a broken piece of shell, a bent nail if they have one, a splinter of wood sharpened against a rock. They use their own hair or threads pulled from clothing as line. Some fish leap directly into small boats at night, drawn to movement or light, and are simply grabbed. And one man took this further than almost anyone in recorded history. José Salvador Alvarenga, a fisherman who survived 438 days adrift in the Pacific after his boat's motor failed in 2012, kept himself alive largely on raw fish and turtles he caught by hand, along with rainwater and, when nothing else was available, turtle blood. 438 days, over 14 months, alone on open ocean with no rescue coming. And he wasn't the first person to prove this was survivable. Decades earlier, someone else had already shown the world exactly how far a human being could stretch these same skills. In 1943, a Chinese steward named Poon Lim was aboard a British merchant ship torpedoed in the South Atlantic. He spent 133 days alone on a wooden life raft, rigging a canopy for shade, collecting rainwater in a can, and catching fish, and even a small shark with a hook he built from a flashlight spring. When he was finally found by fishermen off the coast of Brazil, he had lost weight, but he could still stand, still walk onto the boat under his own power. His survival time remains one of the longest ever documented on record for a person adrift alone. Rain, fish, improvised tools. That's 3 of the 5 things keeping these people alive. But here's the part almost nobody talks about, and it's arguably the most dangerous one. Staying alive physically was only half the problem. The other half was staying alive mentally. Extended isolation on open water produces something survival psychologists now recognize clearly. Sensory deprivation combined with extreme stress leads to hallucinations, disorientation, and a specific well-documented urge, an overwhelming compulsion to simply go into the water and swim, sometimes toward imagined land, sometimes toward nothing at all. Callahan wrote about fighting this exact impulse repeatedly during his 76 days. Multiple long-term castaways have described seeing ships, cities, and people that weren't there. The mind, faced with nothing to process, starts inventing something, which means survival wasn't just about hooks and rainwater. It was about finding a way to keep your thoughts occupied, disciplined, and pointed toward a future that felt increasingly unlikely. Callahan rationed not just his food and water, but his hope, deliberately, consciously, the same way he rationed everything else. That's the fourth thing, discipline of the mind treated with the same seriousness as food and water. Now here's where this stops being a story about a handful of unlucky modern sailors and becomes something much bigger. Here's the fifth thing, and it's the one nobody sees coming. Long before life rafts and flashlight springs, Pacific Islander navigators were doing versions of this on purpose, and sometimes by accident, for thousands of years. Polynesian wayfinders regularly launched voyages across open ocean, reading stars, swells, and birds to find islands separated by more than 1,000 miles of empty water. It worked spectacularly well enough to populate nearly every habitable island across the largest ocean on Earth. But it also, inevitably, sometimes failed. Canoes were blown off course by storms. Currents shifted unpredictably. Some voyagers never found their intended destination, and instead found something else entirely, an uncharted island, or nothing at all. Researchers studying the settlement patterns of the remote Pacific have long noted something striking. Some islands appear to have been populated not by planned voyages, but by castaways. People who set out for one place, got lost, and survived long enough on the open water to be carried somewhere new. The same skills that killed a modern shipwreck survivor's chances if he lacked them catching rain, catching fish, rationing hope, are the same skills that may have quietly built entire island civilizations, one accidental near-fatal drift at a time, which means the ocean wasn't only a barrier for a certain kind of unlucky, resourceful human being, it was occasionally, almost by accident, a bridge. So what did ancient humans do when they were stranded at sea? They did exactly what Callahan did, what Alvarenga did, what Poon Lim did, centuries and continents apart, without ever hearing of one another. They caught the rain the moment it came. They pulled fluid from fish they'd never have eaten raw on land. They built tools from nothing. They rationed their fear the same way they rationed their food. And some of them, against every reasonable expectation, survived long enough for the current to finally hand them a shore. So picture that canoe again. Water in every direction, no line on the horizon. Now you know what's in the hands of the person sitting in it. Not a compass, not a map, just rain, fish, a splinter of wood, and whatever's left of their will to keep going. For a huge stretch of human history, that same view was sometimes the last thing between a person and starting an entirely new branch of the human story. And somewhere out there, on an island that shouldn't exist on any planned map, someone's descendants are alive today because one ancestor refused to let the ocean win.